Welcome to the Invincible Ultimate Collection Recap Series, where I go over the greatest comic book series in the world. We're on Volume 2 in the series out of 12, and we're coming straight off the events from the last book, where we saw Mark defend the planet from his father, Omni-Man. We start off with the return of the Flaxen Army, who are far more powerful than before. The new Guardians of the Globe take out their wristbands, causing them to rapidly age, and they're defeated. Later that night, the Immortal flies up to Mark outside his house, suspecting him from the previous events. Cecil discusses with Mark and puts some concerns to rest, but also informs him about the events being broadcasted live, meaning Debbie could see. Art comes over to cheer up and drink with Debbie. During school, one of the bombing survivors gets in a fight with a bunch of kids. The principal assures Mark he's got nothing to worry about at school. Bulletproof is added to the Guardians of the Globe roster, along with the resurrected Immortal. Mark comes home to Debbie crying on the floor over the incident. Issue 15. Robot lectures Monster Girl about her hitting on the new member Bulletproof, and she reminds him she's 29, but because of her powers she ages in reverse. He says he'll try to find a way to fix it. Mark's beeper goes off at school, and he's needed by Cecil to stand in for a marriage, since the laws of Aquarius's underwater civilization state the killer needs to replace the king, aka Mark's dad. When he goes down to Atlantis to stall for time and talks to Lethen the Vizier, who is in love with the queen, so they plan a way to get him married instead. The Immortal catches the Mahler twins stealing the equipment and defeats them. Mark's plan goes successfully, and he gets out of there, to his mom to go eat pizza. Eve uses William as a way to get closer to Mark. Cecil sends Mark on more missions, and one to take down this giant furnace mech. Secretly, Mark's not taking things too well with his father. Issue number 16. We look into an alternate reality where Mark joins his father in conquering Earth. We see running through the panicked streets a man named Angstrom Levy as he ducks into a secret hideout with Robot and the Immortal, as they ask if he was followed, and shortly after, Mark and Omni-Man burst through the ceiling, killing the two. Right then, a portal appears, saving Angstrom, and it's another version of himself, who can access every possible reality. In our main reality, an alien force similar to the Flaxens is trying to take over. During the battle, Eve sees a streak in the sky, and shortly after the army is mysteriously defeated, which reading back is really weird because Mark's dad is gone, and at this point the Viltrumites haven't really been introduced, so who is this streak? Cecil is fed up with the new Guardians' performance. Mark checks up with the damages. Cecil demotes Robot and makes Immortal leader. There's a moment Damien Darkblood finally figures out Omni-Man killed the Guardians and tries to inform Cecil, but everyone already knows and they laugh in his face. The show fleshed out his character a lot more, and it's kinda as if they forgot about him in the comics. Mark and Eve clean up and find Titan, who also ends up helping. We see Angstrom Levy guide his alternate self to a hideout with countless other versions of himself. Issue number 17. Mark and Amber go on a date and share their first kiss. We see in prison the Mahler twins sitting in their cell before one of Angstrom's portals appearing, freeing them. He makes a deal with the twins to help him with his plans or ditch them in a wasteland, and they go with him back to the hideout. Mark gets a beeper from Cecil and flies out to fight a giant mutated man with super strength. We get to see the Cape's crew, who's on scene, trying to take him down. Mark talks to Bolt, and we meet Kid Thor and Commander Capitalism. Mark flies the man into space and defeats him. Later they come together to celebrate graduation, and Mark launches his cap. Issue number 18. Eve, William, and Amber are at Burger Mart talking about why Mark's always late, and he shows up before his beeper goes off. Cecil wants to send him on a mission to Mars to keep an eye on the astronauts. Angstrom shows the Mahler twins the hideout. We meet Isotope and Machine Head, who are the head of one of America's major crime organizations, and Titan reports to them. Mark looks away for a second, and the Martians capture the astronauts, so Mark has to rescue them. We're introduced to the Sequids, these mindless slaves that need a host in order to gain sentience. The Martians are immune to the Sequids, but humans aren't, so that's why they were captured. Mark speaks to the Monarch, who says they are to be executed. So Mark rushes them out of there. Unknown, they left behind an astronaut, and a Martian snuck aboard. Issue number 19. The Martian goes back to the astronaut's apartment and relaxes. Eve breaks up with William, and Mark and Amber go out for lunch. His beeper goes off, and he flies to find Titan demolishing stuff to get his attention. He wants help from Mark to take down Machine Head, and Mark agrees, so they fly through the organization's tower. They face Machine Head, who brings in reinforcements: Battle Beast, Magnetak, Kirks, Furnace, Maniac, and Tether Tyrant. They begin fighting and are outnumbered. Mark holds his own against most of the villains, except for when Battle Beast face him. He smashes Mark with his mallet, and Magnetak chips away Titan's shell. Then the Guardians of the Globe arrive. They defeat the villains except for Battle Beast, who nearly kills Bulletproof and Black Samson. Later, Cecil speaks to Mark about letting Titan off the hook and the Guardians' recovery. We see, though, as Titan plans on replacing Machine Head as crime boss. Issue number 20. Eve talks to Mark about how she doesn't want to be a superhero anymore, and he supports her decision. We see the work the Mahler twins have done for Angstrom, a giant contraption meant to take the memory of every alternate Angstrom and merge them into one. Mark talks to Art about Debbie, and Mark goes out to lunch with his mom. Mark and William move into their college dorm together. They take class the next day when they meet Rick. We also meet Sinclair. Later at college, another one of those robots appears and causes a panic. Mark leaves Amber in order to stop the robot, and afterwards she breaks up with him. We see Sinclair is the one behind the robots, or Reanimin. Issue number 21. We see Darkwing's sidekick in Midnight City terrorizing people. Robot checks in on Bulletproof's recovery, and then speaks to Cecil's assistant, Donald, about Monster Girl's transformations. Cecil calls in Mark to leave class in order to help with Midnight City. Angstrom and the Maulers get started with the process. Mark arrives to talk to Darkwing's sidekick and finds out he's been killing people, so they fight, and the sidekick pulls him into a place called the Shadowverse. Mark threatens to hold him there until one of the monsters in the shadows eats them, and the sidekick reluctantly releases them. Then they take them into custody. Cecil tells an assistant to keep an eye on the Maulers, but not to intervene yet. We see Robot in a discreet location as he faces a deformed version of himself in a tube. Issue number 22. Rick, William, and Mark are out watching a movie, and after Mark goes to see Amber. He sneaks in her room and tells her why he disappeared, but gets interrupted by Cecil, so he jumps out the window. Rick goes home to get knocked out. In Africa, we see Eve helping. Amber talks to her friend about Mark, and she finds out he's a superhero. Debbie and Art drink and talk about Nolan and how he couldn't have faked his life on Earth. Robot speaks to Monster Girl about finding a cure for her transformations. In a NASA meeting, the Martian tries to keep his cool but ends up getting the astronaut fired. Mark tells Amber that he's invincible. We see Sinclair in his laboratory working on Rick to turn him into a Reanimin. Issue number 23. Mark and Eve have sex. Meanwhile, Alan the alien travels back home to the coalition of planets, and we get his backstory. The Unopan race he comes from was nearly driven extinct by the Viltrumites, but they sustained and created breeding camps to repopulate. Alan was a part of a program where he was genetically designed to be strong enough to face Viltrumites. He returned home to Telescria and enters the High Council room, where he speaks to Great Thetis and tells of Nolan abandoning Earth and Mark being an asset to the Coalition. After, Alan goes home to his girlfriend Telia, who wants to have sex. Later, they're out in a spaceship eating dinner, when all of a sudden a Viltrumite bursts through and attacks Alan. They demand he tells them everything about his encounter with the Viltrumite from Earth, but he refuses, and they end up absolutely destroying Alan, leaving him to fight for his life. Mark wakes up from a perfect night and flies off. Issue number 24. Mark speaks with Art and lets him know he needs to talk to his mother, and it's been a month, so Mark goes home and sees her. They talk about how she's enrolled in real estate classes, and he told Amber he's invincible. Meanwhile, Angstrom's plan is about to unfold, as he has all of his alternates strapped to the device as the Maulers get ready to turn it on. Just then, Invincible bursts through the hideout and tries to put a stop to it. He hits the Maulers until Angstrom is forced to teleport reinforcements, a bunch of alternate Mauler twins who begin beating the shit out of Mark. Angstrom says there won't be blood on his hands, so he removes the contraption from his head and blows everything up, leaving Mark in a pile of bodies and dust. The Guardians of the Glove arrive and take Mark, and we see one of the Mauler twins survived. So did Angstrom, who is now disfigured, and he teleports away. And that's the end of Invincible, The Ultimate Collection, Volume 2. Thank you so much for watching if you've made it this far. And be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in another video. Thank you.